This podcast is sponsored by the Building Performance Workshop, helping pros make more money doing better work for happier clients with advanced NBPI trainings and our new book, Home Performance Diagnostics. More at buildingperformanceworkshop.com. Enjoy. Welcome to the Building Performance Podcast from Green Dream Group in Chicago. I'm Corbett Lunsford. Today we're talking about trends in high-performance building and retrofits for the third time with Sam Rashkin, who is a superstar, as you may already know. He is the Chief Architect for the DOE's Building Technologies Office. Sam, thank you so much for being on the program again.
Hey, great to be here, Corbett.
So what have you seen in the last year? Now, you switched over from being at the EPA and heading up the Energy Star program, which you helped to found, and you went to the DOE, and now you're working with the an even more intense program. Can you tell us a little bit about what the evolution of that has been?
Sure, Corbett. I have about a 17-year track record with Energy Star for Homes, working with a great team and getting that program into the marketplace. So I joined DOE to, one, work with the Building America program, help lead its direction and its effective dissemination out to the stakeholders, and also with a label that's kind of a zero net energy ready label called Challenge Home. And Challenge Home used to be called DOE Builder Challenge, but essentially it recognizes leading builders who go all the way to build homes so efficient a small renewable energy system can offset most or all the annual energy consumption.
And in most part, just to be technical here, most parts of the areas that I work in, the utilities don't let you be off-grid. That's actually illegal. So what happens then with hooking it up to the grid? Is it proven that they don't actually pull anything from the local utility?
The vast majority of homes that go net zero are on grid and use effectively the utility grid system as a storage system. So the meter just runs both ways, and they have a relationship with the utilities where you have to have disconnects when there's a power failure, so the line workers doing the repairs have no risk of being hurt by power from PV systems coming on to the grid. And there are other logistics about sometimes some charges for having the grid service the PV system and take the power. But effectively, the way these systems work is the meter just goes backwards when you're providing power to the grid, and when you're consuming from the grid, of course, it goes the other way and it records how much energy you use. So it's just effectively the grid is a storage system. There are some net zero homes that go completely off grid, and effectively they have to have battery storage, so when the PV systems are not producing, power is still ready.
Interesting. Now, who are these builders that you're getting to sign on to spend way more money than just to do Energy Star, and more energy and more time to actually do something that is noteworthy within their market?
Well, first, it's not way more money. Energy Star roughly runs about $3,000 or $4,000 more above code to build to, and I'd say we're another $4,000 or $5,000 initially until you climb the learning curve, and then those costs drop even quite a bit. So it's, for most builders, it's like less than 1% more to build a net zero home, and that's what's amazing. The emotion scale that you jump when you get a home buyer a value proposition to move into a house that's so efficient that it can virtually be free of worry about utility costs now or in the future, depending when you want to add a renewable energy system, is extraordinarily different from just getting an efficient home. Efficient's great, it saves me $40, $50 a month. If we're more effective at selling it, we aggregate those savings over 10, 20, 30 years, and it becomes a bigger number. But there's something emotional about owning a house built so well that you have the ability to not have to worry about utility bills. It's emotional. It's much like freeing yourself from paying taxes. Utility bills.
Do you have that house on the market?
I wish.
That's the next program.
So getting builders to invest 1% more to take their house to that level, that's a pretty powerful investment opportunity for them, because it differentiates them in a very, very powerful way from code-built homes, even Energy Star homes, and for sure the existing homes.
Mm-hmm. And if you ask anyone who is a home buyer if they would spend $10,000 more for a home that they wouldn't have to worry about, as you pointed out, almost every single person would say, yes, I would absolutely pay $10,000 more for that.
And of course, we're not even asking them to pay $10,000 more. You still wind up with these zero net energy homes where the cost of ownership the day you move in is less because the savings exceeds the incremental increase in the mortgage. So we're asking them to pay no more or less for a house with $10,000, $20,000 more value. That's really what we're saying.
Yeah. And it's not all about utility savings with your program. There's a lot of durability issues that you're dealing with as well. Can you talk about those?
Oh, it's such an important question, and it's a great question because there's net zero or zero net energy homes, and there's zero net energy homes responsibly. And what Challenge Home is about is being responsible. It's doing all the energy efficient improvements first. And then it's recognizing that those energy efficient improvements lead to much tighter construction, much better insulated envelopes that make it imperative to be comprehensive about indoor air quality. It's not enough to improve indoor air quality. It's imperative to be comprehensive. You just don't have really any ability to ensure that these homes can dry if they get wet, that they get enough fresh air to dilute pollutants inside the home, and that they can manage pressure imbalances that are more likely because they're so much tighter and there's so many more fans in new homes that we build. So it's great that other programs have some improvements in indoor air quality, but the Challenge Home realizes that a responsible zero net energy home has to have comprehensive indoor air quality. And the third piece that's there is we also recognize that since it's so easy to go to zero energy performance, we should accommodate it up front with big savings by having the house renewable ready. So very simple details that are part of this program ensure a solar system can be added at very reduced cost because you don't have to worry about those details that are much more expensive to retrofit later. By example, simple things like just giving the homeowner the structural engineering calculations for the roof truss or the roof framing so they don't have to go to an engineer 5 or 10 years later and get those at a cost of $1,000. Or doing simple things like having the circuit breaker box have extra slots that are needed for the solar system and not have to add those at hundreds of dollars of cost. It costs virtually nothing to have a box purchased initially that has that capacity. And having things like having conduit from the roof to that power, to the power panel, and it costs virtually nothing while during construction to put a PV pipe from the roof to that inverter location. And so you can save thousands of dollars at virtually trivial or no extra cost for the builder, and then you can sell your home in terms of value propositions. This is ready for no energy consumption performance. So those are the three main requirements, and we're also at the same time looking at being more responsible in the future and today encouraging builders voluntarily, if they want, with this program to think about disaster-resistant construction, extra measures that would ensure the house addresses the primary risk associated with that location, and water conservation, since water demand is as much or more of a critical issue in many markets than even energy requirements. So adding all those pieces, I think, make the builders responsible to a much more comprehensive approach to how we build these homes. And so that's the I think the unique way we're going about this. Now, it's different from green programs where you get points for doing things to requiring whole systems.
And those green programs have been lately kind of boo-hooed for the performance sometimes because people tend to choose the points that are the easy ones that don't incorporate a systems approach.
Well, an inherent challenge anytime you have a point-based program is the myriad of different combinations and people figuring out what's the least costly one. I think going to a systems-based approach that we choose does the powerful thing for the program, which lets us go to consumers with insured value propositions. And we have, like 8 key value propositions for Challenge Home we think are phenomenal. Any consumer would want to have them. And if they try these homes, this is for certain, this is all they'll ever buy in the future. So we can't ensure that value proposition with points. We ensure it with systems.
One of the classic lags in our industry, unlike in the software industry where people develop products that then incentivize people to use them, is that we have a program like yours that has a process that needs products. and we don't have a lot of manufacturers that are stepping up to incorporate these changes. Like, for example, in Energy Star, we have to take a static pressure reading in in one of the plenums. There is no place to do that in a classic furnace. How much outreach do you do to manufacturers to get them to do what you want them to do so that your program can succeed?
Well, to manufacturers, I don't know that they are the critical point for our success. I think in terms of having them have to do things they don't normally do. I think what drives the requirements for our program are getting the builders to use the right products from the right manufacturers of their choice, and also to have the quality control systems, the checklists that we have, just like Energy Star, to make sure they're followed completely and with a lot of assurance that normally might not be there in typical construction practices. So the manufacturers, mostly for us, are incredibly valuable as a way to reach builders. They have great products, but their best products aren't often what's being chosen by a builder. It's more the lower grade products that get selected. And we find that we can work with manufacturers to make the best products they have, or in some cases, the manufacturers who have unique products have a way to reach builders with training programs that showcase how all this fits together, and they get again to offer this kind of product. But it's our homes, for instance, you mentioned on the testing in the duct systems. Our homes are so efficient; they don't need duct systems if you really want to go there. There are technologies like ductless mini splits that just virtually have no ducts and are super efficient and are so conducive to low-load homes. So there are lots of wrinkles to how this all works. But that's, I don't think that's our critical issue. It's mostly what you were getting at in your statement, that people have a way to go and look at an iPad and touch it and feel it, play around with it at a retail center, and realize this is something they never knew they wanted, but as soon as they try it, they have to have it, the business model for Apple. And you don't have that with a house nearly as easily, where they can go try a house, live in it, and realize after an extended time that this is not like any other experience they had, which is the way it will be with these zero net energy homes. So they can't figure out try it and realize they have to have it. So we have to have more effective messaging at the sales process, more effective communication in all the outreach that goes out to consumers, and hopefully people talking to each other once they're in these homes.
I think maybe there's a partnership between the DOE and Disney World, where you could have a park where people could rent homes that would have this. You'd keep their family in there.
Well,
bam, next year's idea.
I don't know. I think the trick is just to get enough of these homes on the ground so that you do create word of mouth, you do create enough experience and understanding that homes are just not the same product they used to be. I mean, we put it with so much. We've almost been like the proverbial frog that's in the water that's increasing in temperature, not realizing it's getting worse and worse and worse. And it's not that homes are so bad. It's just that the amount of innovation that's sitting there waiting to be captured and take them to a much higher level is just so slow. I mean, the fact that we put 105-degree air conditioning here and a 140-degree attic is beyond primitive. I mean, it's insane. We've been doing it for about 50 years. The fact that we don't wrap our housing in rigid insulation or use more advanced wall systems that block the thermal bypasses. And there's 400% more thermal flow, heat coming in the house in hot climates or leaving in cold climates through wood framing. The fact that we're not consistently using construction assemblies that stop that thermal expressway, or not flashing windows so that we have no risk of moisture problems. You add up all the basic details that are not happening, and it's amazing that we don't move faster to get these incredible innovations into the market.
Now, how many checklists are involved in your process?
Well, you have the 4 from Energy Star, because Energy Star for Homes version 3 is a prerequisite. Then on top of that, there are additional mandatory requirements that have checklists. There's the Indoor Air Plus checklist with some exemptions for challenge home. There's a Renewable Energy Ready checklist. We mentioned we want these homes to accommodate renewable systems with very simple improvements. So there's a checklist for renewable energy ready improvements, and then there's requirements that aren't checklists, but you have to do the 2012 IECC check. You have to do the ducts inside the conditioned space check. You have to do air tightness half of Energy Star, which means a house is twice as tight, check. So those are check items, and then there are checklists for the ones I just mentioned.
Now, you mentioned the code, and in Illinois and in Maryland, we've adopted 2012 code, and in Illinois it's with amendments. But how have the codes that have been adopted been either helping or hurting your above code programs when the codes become almost as good as the above code as far as Energy Star goes? How does that dynamic work?
It doesn't help or hurt. It's just the transformation process that we're looking for. We want codes to keep getting better so that every home buyer gets the benefits of a high performance home, and the codes are moving there. So as they move, the improved codes inform what the voluntary programs need to do. What are the gaps that you're not getting with code, and how can we complement that and make this whole process work? We have the great research like Building America does as a hub of innovation for the high-performance home industry. And then you have the voluntary labeling programs like Challenge Home and Energy Star to carry the proven innovations into the market. And then you have the codes to make them virtually mandated by virtue of their adoption. And so you have this wonderful process all working together. So I think mostly what happens is it's our responsibility to coordinate with the codes, understand them, and make sure we're complementing what they're doing. For instance, when you mentioned the 2012 IECC, the important thing to know there is it doesn't require the whole water protection requirements, so it's good. Energy Star and Challenge Home make those mandatory. Particularly a 2012 IECC home is so well insulated and so well air sealed for much less infiltration that now we know that those air quality requirements are crucial and the water protection are crucial. So these voluntary programs almost become, in my mind, urgent for a builder. You can't just say, well, I'll just do the code. And if you don't do the voluntary programs, you at least should follow the requirements in the program if you don't get certified. And then we look for, again, opportunities to make the homes more efficient and keep moving further and continue the process.
Now, if it becomes more urgent, and for example, in Illinois, we have the sinking feeling that this year, as people start building just to code and just dealing with the things that they are mandated to do by law, things will start happening that are bad. And people may start thinking, oh no, energy efficient building is terrible, it poisons my kids. Is that kind of a thing, is that kind of a backlash good in that it creates an opportunity for us to push these above code programs? Or is it gonna, we're gonna have to suffer consequences from that?
I'm more nervous about the latter, about consequences. That, there's this myth, for instance, you hear all the time for a decade plus that homes need to breathe. And there's so many myths out there. And so if the codes had been really effective at pushing efficiency, and then the outcome is that by pushing efficiency but not the performance that also goes hand in hand as a total package, and you wind up as a result with failures, I'm nervous the pressure would be to pull back on the efficiency. And in reality, for me, as an advisor with some code efforts, I'm always advocating you push efficiency far enough for now. You have an obligation now to do the related building science and performance improvements that are part and parcel making a home that efficient. And I don't think the code can ignore it, just the way it can't ignore with plumbing leakage or with electrical system safety. I think there are these parallel issues with efficiency. So it's not that it's bad, but it could be, as you suggest, if there are failures that ensue because of the more efficient construction without the counterbalancing performance improvements. If I see pressures to pull back on the code, I'll be very concerned because it's doing everything it should. So that's why our program's even more important. I think we address risk that builders face. I don't know that they'll I don't think a builder will be relieved of being responsible for failures just because the code only required the energy portion. And so that's why getting to like thousands of builders with training that I'm trying to personally do is so important. I want to make sure builders understand how we complement their business interest. And so it's real important. We can't afford to have these failures. It really will hurt the movement to high performance.
So you're looking for people all over the country to host these trainings that the Department of Energy wants to do to help builders understand your Challenge Home program and be able to start implementing that, right?
Absolutely. I think what we want everyone to understand is high performance has two key pieces. It's the energy and the performance. And that, and then if you're going to address both those, you'll drastically reduce your risk. And then there's this big opportunity just waiting to be captured, where if you address both and then go a little bit extra, now you can be zero net energy ready and have all these market advantages. So yes, we want to reach as many builders as possible, even if they don't do our program. Let's appreciate the risk of just building the code without any performance or any comprehensive performance strategy behind it. And if we can help builders understand just that, that will be a great outcome from the training. And those that want to kind of be leading builders and go the next step for zero energy performance, we're there to kind of help them with that recognition. But it's real critical to reach those builders. Yeah.
By the way, we're at the ResNet conference. This is Sam and my annual ritual, and I happen to drag him into a hallway where we've got a lot of people walking by and doors slamming, so I apologize to you for having to listen to this. One more question. I recall you saying that Energy Star was at some point going to lead up to Passive House. And there's been some, Passive House has been kind of working its way into the U.S., but there's some argument about whether it actually can work in our climate zones here, because in Germany, where it's very successful, their climate zone is not like all of ours that we've got in the U.S. What's your thought on the evolution of that standard?
Well, first of all, my thinking was that there's a continuum of choices, and there's usually real clear distinctions between those different breakpoints in that continuum, what everything does. A code home is, well, it's the worst home allowed by law, is the pejorative way of saying it. But really what a code home is at that point in time what government feels is the minimum requirements to build a home with the technologies and practices that we understand are most vital. So that's what a code home gets you. Then Energy Star is an above code program, and its purpose when I left was to finally get to a point where it can ensure fairly comprehensive building science so that you address key performance elements and energy both. And then Challenge Home in the continuum goes the next step, which says let's be more comprehensive about some of the risks that are associated with high efficiency, make it mandatory to do air quality and solar readiness. And let's ramp up the efficiency even further so the whole house package is, in fact, a zero net energy ready home, one that's so efficient a small renewable system can offset most or all the energy consumption. And the final part of the continuum is Passive House, which his goal is to make homes that are the most comprehensive thermal enclosure possible, almost like a thermos bottle. And let's maximize the thermal enclosure and then have all the mechanical systems complement that very small need for heating and cooling. And effectively, it's the penultimate enclosure you can do. And what's interesting is somewhere right around Challenge Home, you're crossing a point where the extra investments in the enclosure can be more expensive than an investment in a renewable system that can provide the same energy-saving benefits. So some of the economic dynamics are pretty interesting. But again, homes that last hundreds of years, these are very complicated considerations, and Passive House is sitting there as this penultimate thermal enclosure opportunity for homeowners and builders who want to take it to that level. So the interest for me is just that people understand all those choices and how they fit, and then they know and they can pick where they want to be in that continuum.
Excellent. Sam, thank you so much for being on the show.
Sure, it's great as always, and look forward to joining you maybe in Chicago with a training class.
Excellent. We will be doing that. And look for a training in your local area. If you want to set one up, go ahead and contact the Department of Energy. Sam Rashkin is the Chief Architect with the DOE's Building Technologies Office. You've been listening to the Building Performance Podcast. I'm Corbett Lunsford. Tune in next time.